Hello and welcome to the Digital Piano Academy Theory Part 1. Welcome to the DPA Theory. This is for beginners and intermediate learners. In this unit, we're going to look over the fundamentals of theory, its use, and how you'll be able to understand the definitions going forward in your studies. There are two main categories we will focus on in theory. The first is basic classical. So this would include signs and symbols, terms, cadences, harmony, and definitions. The second one is basic jazz, which is also signs and symbols, lingo, chord progressions, harmony, and definitions. Despite the two categories, both have the same fundamental understandings of time, key signatures, symbols and signs, use of harmony, chord progressions, and even more. This module is theoretical only, and you'll be expected to be able to notate, write out, and define theoretical definitions, signs, and symbols. So let's begin. Here we're going to start off with classical theory, basic classical theory. So basic quote-unquote classical theory and or simple music theory is the theoretical understanding of music and its functions. It is the foundation for how music is created and conceptualized even when there are no notes involved. Whenever you create a piece, sing a song, play a note, or hum a song, on a theoretical level, you are doing something and or performing something. These actions can all be defined in most music, and almost everything can be explained. Think about it for a moment, the universe. It's vast, it's never ending, it's mysterious. Music theory is quite often the same. It's vast, it's never ending, and it's very mysterious. If it can be conceptualized, then it exists theoretically. So let's get into some of the theory fundamentals to learn, which would include bass, treble, alto, and tenor. Here, as you can see in the diagram, where middle C is at different points on the staff. So the first we have is a treble clef. That is a symbol designed for right hand or right side playing. Next, we have bass clef, a symbol that is designed for left hand or left-sided playing. We have alto clef, which is a symbol designed to arrange for middle C on the third line of the staff. We have tenor clef, a symbol designed to arrange for middle C on the fourth line of the staff. We have baritone clef, a symbol designed to arrange for middle C on the fifth line of the staff. Soprano staff or soprano clef, a symbol designed to arrange for middle C on the first line of the staff. And as you can see here is a better understanding of the different types of clefs that you will come across. You typically are going to stay within the treble and the bass clef, and maybe you will encounter alto clef. As for the other clefs, that's if you are doing voice and or if you're using string, or if you're using some kind of deeper brass instrument, then you would come across those as well. So the staff is 5 lines that establishes the foundation for note placement and reading. You also have the grand staff, which is also a symbol designed to bring both the clefs together. It's common in piano music, and if we have another example, I will show you the grand staff. You have SATB, which stands for soprano, alto, tenor, bass. This is voicing, and we use it in voice leading on the staff, which is also very common to see. There are also leisure lines, so these are the notes that go above or below the 5 lines on the staff. This is to save space and time. So here on the left, you will see the correct way of how leisure lines should be notated, and the incorrect and or a little bit amateur way, I would say, is where there are extra leisure lines that go above where the note has already been notated. It's just kind of redundant and it's unnecessary. So the extra leisure lines are kind of just amateur, and they can be helpful for people who are still reading leisure lines, but in most, common classical music, you're not really supposed to see that, or you're not really going to see that. So that's just something to keep in mind. We also have key signatures, so this is sharps and or flats that determine the key of the piece. It is and can be changed throughout the duration of the piece. We have time signatures, which are responsible for setting the tempo and the rhythmic beats per measure, which is also called BPM. Whole notes and whole note rest, these are musical notes, circular and or oval in appearance, typically notated with the value of 4 beats per measure. Half notes and half rests are musical notes, also circular and oval in appearance, typically noted with the value of 2 beats per measure. We have quarter notes and quarter note rests. So these are musical notes, circular or oval in appearance, typically notated with the value of 1 beats per minute. Eighth note rests, musical notes with an appearance of a flag. They're typically noted with a value of a half a beat per minute. 16th notes and 16th note rests also have a flag, 2 flags here, typically notated with 1/4 of a beat per measure. And then we have 32nd notes, which also have 3 flags, and they're notated with a value of 1/8. Okay, so down here is also a better diagram of what the notes look like versus what the rests look like. So a whole note rest kind of looks like a hole in the ground. That's usually how I remember it. A half rest looks like a top hat. A quarter note looks like a lightning bolt. And an eighth rest, I'm not really sure. I guess it looks like a 7. Okay, so moving forward, we also get into the basic jazz theory. So basic jazz theory is the theoretical understanding of music and its functions from a jazz perspective. It is the foundation for how music is created and conceptualized, even when there are no notes involved, and it often involves extra lingo, symbols, and explanations. So jazz theory is also like the universe in relation to classical theory. The only difference is that it's like a billion times bigger. But I would argue that both of them have a lot of vastness in it as we get just from advanced to intermediate to, sorry, from beginner to intermediate to advanced theory. It can kind of just be this never ending black hole. So let's start off with the anatomy of a chord. The chord would consist of the root, the triad quality, and its extensions if they're present. So usually what you will typically see is the root of the chord, or the name of the chord, I would like to call it. Then you would have the quality of the chord, so it could be minor, major, augmented, or diminished. And then you would have the extensions that would give the chord a bit more harmonic presence, that would alter it in some kind of way, that would just give it a different type of harmonic feel overall. So this is the anatomy of a chord, and it's very important to know this in specifically in jazz. There are also triad symbols and abbreviations with variations. So if you can see within every type of with every type, major, minor, diminished, and augmented, there are variations, and within the variations, there are abbreviations. So for major, the abbreviation for a major triad would just be C, or C major, or C uppercase M, or C triangle. Once you put a 7 on top of that, it just means the same thing as before, just C major 7, C a capital 7, C capital M 7, C triangle 7. Okay? The only place where this would not work is that if you have a C7, that would be considered a dominant 7. So that's just something to keep in mind. So for minor, in some cases, you will see a lowercase c. That could mean minor. You could see C minor. You could see C lowercase m, and then you could see C minus sign. For the diminished, you will see C dim, C circle, C minor flat 5. I don't see this one typically, but it does exist. And CM 0 diminished 5. Okay? These two I would say are less common. You are more than likely going to just see the C circle and the C dim. Usually when I would see like CM flat 5, it's more so leaning towards 7th chords, so that's why I wouldn't say that you would see these last two. Moving over to augmented, so you have C AUG, you have C plus sign. Sometimes in some contexts people could think that the C plus sign could mean C major, but in most contexts it means C augmented. And then you could also see C major sharp 5 and C major plus 5. So usually when it comes to the sharp or the plus, that's augmented, which means the chord is getting bigger. Okay, so major symbols, there are several different symbols that all mean major chords, 4-part and more. So pretty much everything that I spoke about earlier in these symbols, you would just put a seventh on top of it, and that's where you would get your minor symbols: augmented, diminished, half diminished, which is pretty much just this with the circle through it, and that pretty much covers everything for there. Next, we have note heads. So this is the size and the shape for all types of notes, and they are usually oval or circular. More, I would say more people opt for an oval look for the note heads. This is one thing that you probably want to avoid, making them too big or too small or too circular, or having the oval kind of go in opposite direction, or making them look too much of a whole note if that's not what you're trying to do. So just making sure that when you're notating them that it is consistent throughout and that they're a little bit more on the oval side. Then you have stem placement, the line that connects to the note head, and it has established the differences between note types by the additional flag. So the golden rule here is up on the right and down on the left after the third line on the staff. So if you see here, after you get to the third line, you kind of want to go, you kind of want to move in this direction. Now, if you have a group of notes, if you have a group of notes, it actually doesn't really matter. But when you have like singular notes moving in a certain direction, then this matters a little bit more. So here's a good rule to follow. And here's what you don't want to do, where you just have one note going up, one note down, unless it's tied over into the next bar. Again, one note down, and another stem is missing, or stem's missing entirely, unless it's a stacked chord or something else, right? It all depends on the context, but this is something that you want to avoid. Note flag, it's a curvature added to the stem to establish the type of note. So you could have an eighth, a 16th, a 32nd, etc. Note beams, lines that group notes together and establish rhythm, and also the type of notes by horizontal beaming. So one beam would be an eighth note, second beam would be a 16th, third a 32nd, a fourth a 64th. So here is a better understanding where you have at the bottom the note head, which leads to the stem, note head again, and then you have the stem and a beam. And then if it's a singular note, you have the note head, stem, and flag. Here is a better example of how you can use the up on the right and down on the left, especially when you're moving past the third line on the staff, and how all the notes are beamed together, and they're beamed together in groups of 4. Okay, next we have sharp signs. So this moves the note up by a half step. So example, going from F to F sharp. We have a natural sign, which cancels a sharp or a flat and returns it back to the natural note. A flat sign moves the note down a half step. So example, going from F to F flat or E natural. And then we have double sharps. So a sharp that has been augmented again or been augmented twice. And the sign for that is an X sign. Some people use like an uppercase X or a lowercase x. As long as it's an X, it doesn't really matter. And then you have double flats, a flat that has been diminished again, and the sign for that is two flats. So although it's not here, what you can picture is if this was a sharp, you would put an X. If this was a double, if this was a double sharp, you would put an X. If this was a double flat, you would put another flat sign. So here it shows you that in pink, here are the sharps. In purple, here are the flats. And in blue are the natural notes, or the natural sign. Okay. Let's move on to musical definitions. So in this unit, we will learn most of the basic classical and jazz definitions that you can come across. The goal is for you to have a solid understanding and to be able to explain it. So here is kind of like where we lumped classical and jazz together, and what you will see commonly in both genres. So you have dynamics. So this tells us how loud or how soft to play notes. Articulation tells us how to emphasize the notes being played. So here we have different types of dynamics. You have piano, which means soft, forte, which means loud, mezzo piano means medium soft, and mezzo forte means medium loud. And here is a better understanding of how you could see it in an actual piece of music, where you have piano at the beginning, And the piano dynamic actually continues on for the duration of the bars until another dynamic is introduced. And then here at the bottom, you have mezzo piano with staccato notes, which kind of refers to just these parts being played at mezzo piano. So there's also some nuances to how dynamics are played and when they are to be played. Some other dynamics include pianissimo, which is very soft, pianissimo, which is pianissimo is very, very soft, pianissimo is very soft, fortissimo is very loud, and fortissimo is very, very loud. Okay, and then here is also another rundown or chart for you to follow, where you have the quietest, then you have very quiet, quiet, then you have moderately quiet, moderately loud, forte, which is loud, fortissimo, and fortissimo. Okay. You also come across crescendo or the abbreviation CRESS, and that's a dynamic that gradually gets louder and sometimes slower over time and or faster over time. So depending on where you're at in this particular piece, there can be some nuances to using a crescendo. Same with a diminuendo, also known as a dim, the dynamic that usually gets quieter and slower. So if you're coming to the end of a musical phrase, you usually finish with a diminuendo. Okay, and then we have slurs, which are longer curved articulations that extend beyond the measure to group notes together, and they connect notes of two different pitches or notes of the same pitch. And we have ties, which connects two notes of the same pitch with notes in between them, with no notes in between them. So it's pretty much just note to note, pitch to pitch for ties, and then slurs are pitch to any other pitch, note to any other note over a measure. So the slurs are in pink and the ties are in blue so that you can see the differences. A couple other articulations and dynamics. So here, dynamic is retardando, which also means slowing down. You would also see that at the end of a piece, or you could see it throughout a piece. It really just depends on the composer. And you also have these staccato dots, which is called staccato in classical, but it's called more of like an accented dot in jazz, and that just means that you're really going to accent those notes in particular and play them a little bit more sharply as you would just if it wasn't not accented. And lastly, we're going to look into classical idioms. So you have classical and jazz expressions or idioms. These you don't necessarily have to remember, but they're just kind of helpful to learn to just get deeper into your classical studies or get deeper into your jazz studies. So we have peanut gallery, referred to a group of people that sat in the back of a performance hall who could not comment on the performance. So if anytime somebody says quiet peanut gallery, this is actually where it comes from, oddly enough. Preaching to the choir is kind of like when you're pointlessly trying to convince somebody of your opinion and they probably may already agree with you. And then playing second fiddle is usually playing the supporting role of somebody else. And for jazz expressions, you have all that jazz, which can mean like all of that meaningless talk or all of that nonsense. You can even have like hit the road, like get away or get out of here. Cool cats, it often refers to, um, cool gangs, people you quote unquote could hang out with. You have big cats, often referred to the goats, the greatest of all times, people who have been in the jazz industry or the music industry the longest and have the most influence. Okay. And then, so lastly, we have our basic theory assignment. So now that you've seen the differences between the basic classical theory and the basic jazz theory, your theoretical assignments will consist of you learning how to recognize and explain the differences. Below, you're going to have two assignments. The first one is to match the definitions to the illustrations, and then the second assignment is to find and explain jazz and classical definitions, and this one will be a live assignment from your instructor. So that's all for now. I'll see you in the next unit.